I was refilling my dad's whiskey glass when I heard him through the kitchen wall. Flat tone, dead certain. He won't fight it. He never does. The tumbler slipped. Glass exploded across the tile, sharp and sudden, like my guts had dropped straight through my shoes. My name's Alan Cross. I'm 36 years old, and I live in Boston. That was the night I realized I wasn't the son. I was the designated scapegoat. The condo smelled like cedar and something sweet. Those damn candles my ex used to light said they made the place feel like home. I hated them. I bought them anyway. My family was in the living room, sprawled out like they owned the place. They'd come over for a holiday dinner, but it felt more like a corporate raid. Michelle was there, my sister, with her 2 kids wrecking the couch cushions. Mom was rearranging my throw pillows like they'd offended her. And Dad, sipping his second pour of my top shelf bottle like he paid for it. From the kitchen, I could hear every word. She doesn't want to stay in the city anymore, Mom was saying. She shouldn't have to, Dad said. This place is big enough. He's barely using it. Michelle laughed, soft and smug. The schools are better here anyway. They got quiet for a second, just long enough for me to think maybe I imagined it. Then Michelle's voice came low and sure. If we wait, he'll get attached again. Better to just make the move. Better to just make the move. Quick note, before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. The edge of the counter dug into my palms. I looked down at the whiskey pooling under the fridge. No one came in to check the noise. No one even paused their conversation. Because they knew I wouldn't say a word. I never did. Michelle's name was all over their plan. She'd move in, help with the mortgage, eventually take over. They figured I'd go along like always, let them make decisions while I paid the bills. I'd poured every spare dollar into this place, scrimped for years after my divorce, bought secondhand furniture, installed every cabinet myself. And now I was standing there with glass in my palm while my family picked through the bones of the life I built. Not one of them asked. Not one even looked at me. I grabbed a towel, tossed it over the mess, and stepped back into the room. Michelle smiled at me like we were best friends. "You okay?" she asked. I nodded. "Yeah," I said. "Just dropped something." I handed my dad his drink with a steady hand. He didn't even look up. Dinner was dry ham and watery green beans, and they tore through it like wolves, laughing, loud, wiping their mouths on my cloth napkins. Michelle's youngest knocked over a candle, and nobody said a word. When it finally ended, they scattered down the hall, arguing over bedrooms like they were already theirs. I stayed behind, sat near the tree in the dark, watching the lights flicker in the reflection of the window. A red bulb buzzed faintly every few seconds. That tiny sound started grinding my teeth. Their voices faded. I leaned back on the couch and let it hit me. 8 years old. That's the first time I knew I was second tier. Michelle had a backyard birthday party with ponies, a magician, even a damn bounce house. I got frozen pizza and a box of knockoff cookies the night I turned 8. Dad said they were tighter on cash this year. In middle school, I had to tape my cleats with electrical tape because they couldn't swing new ones. That same month, Michelle got a flute she never even used. High school graduation, I wore a wrinkled gown and stood outside alone for photos. They were all out of town, helping her move into her dorm early. She got a better housing assignment or some crap like that. College, I never even applied. I was working doubles by then. Someone had to keep gas in the family car Michelle kept wrecking, and the one time I said no to her, she asked me to co-sign a car loan. I was 25, barely had enough credit to keep my own lights on. I told her no. Told her gently even. From that day on, I was the selfish one. Dad would bring it up at Thanksgiving. Mom would sigh loud anytime my name came up. But I kept showing up. Kept lending tools, fixing pipes, babysitting her kids last minute while she ran out for hair appointments. And now, after all that, they were carving up my home like a roast. The condo wasn't huge, but it was mine. 2 bedrooms, decent lighting, central AC that worked half the time. And I loved it. I'd saved for 5 straight years, packed lunches, skipped vacations, never missed a mortgage payment. I sanded the floors myself, painted every wall twice. That back patio, I poured that concrete slab by hand, 1 bag at a time. They didn't see any of it, or maybe they did and just didn't care. Michelle once said, "You're always acting like a martyr. Nobody owes you anything for being boring." I remember that line exactly. We were standing in the Target parking lot. She'd just guilted me into buying new car seats for her twins, and then dropped that on me like I was the burden, and here we were. Years later, same damn story. They were circling again, like vultures smelling blood. If I didn't do something, they'd strip this place clean, starting with me. Michelle would move in. Her kids would wreck the walls. My parents would sit on my couch like it was theirs. I stood up, pulled the plug on the tree. The lights blinked out. I walked down the hall and found them in the guest room, arguing over which wall to put bunk beds against. Michelle looked up. "You okay?" "Yeah," I said, just thinking. Next morning, she was in my kitchen like she'd always belonged there, wearing one of those oversized college hoodies, leaned up against the counter, sipping her overpriced latte. Almond milk, cinnamon sprinkle, the usual. She smiled, all casual. "Wouldn't it be fun if we moved in here?" She said it like it was cute. Like she was talking about throwing a themed party. I looked at her for a second, just long enough to make her wonder if I was annoyed. Then I let out a little breath and nodded like some tired old man who just accepted his fate. "Might be good," I said. "Save everyone trouble." Her whole face lit up, like I'd just handed her a goddamn title deed wrapped in a bow. "You serious?" "Yeah," I said. "Makes sense. House is already set up. Schools are close. You've got the kids." She turned back to her phone, probably already drafting a post with the perfect hashtag. A few minutes later, Mom came out of the guest room, carrying a laundry basket like she lived there. Dad followed, still wearing his socks from last night. When Michelle told them what I said, I swear I saw Mom's eyes go glassy, like she was about to cry. "I knew you'd do the right thing," she said, and patted my arm like I was 12. Dad clapped me on the back. "Always knew you were solid, knew you'd step up when it mattered." I smiled and said nothing. Inside, I was burning, but I didn't show it. I asked Michelle if she wanted the guest room painted. Figured her kids might want a color that didn't scream bachelor. Oh my God, yes. Maybe a soft blue or green, something calm. I told her I'd take measurements. Said we could pick up paint samples later in the week. Even made a joke about putting in bunk beds. Dad laughed. Mom started talking about curtain rods. Michelle pulled out her phone and started a shopping list. I smiled when they asked about timelines. I nodded when Michelle mentioned getting movers by the end of the month. "You think the couch will fit through the hallway?" she asked. "Should," I said. "If not, we'll take the door off." Every word out of my mouth was bait. That afternoon I offered to cook dinner, made spaghetti, opened a bottle of red wine, played the part. Michelle toasted new beginnings. My parents joked about finally having the family under one roof again. I chewed my food, poured their drinks, and kept my eyes open. They thought I was rolling over. What I was really doing was watching them dig their own grave. One box, one plan, one smug comment at a time. Michelle talked about turning the second bedroom into a home office/playroom. Mom mentioned maybe switching some of the art. Said it wasn't family friendly. Even Dad got bold. Said, "Maybe we should move some of your old stuff to storage." I nodded like a man surrendering. Whatever's easiest. Truth was, the easier I made it, the deeper they stepped into the lie. I stayed up late after they all went to bed, sat in the kitchen with the lights off, scrolling through my phone, looking at numbers, checking dates, running through plans. I had one shot to pull this off clean. No drama, no blow-ups. No second chances. A week later, I stopped by my folks' place to drop off a toolbox I borrowed. I hadn't intended to hang around, but there was a knot in my stomach that wouldn't let me leave. I figured I'd just be quick, hand it over, and get out. Dad was in the kitchen, fumbling with leftovers. I could hear the microwave spinning, the soft clink of dishes. Michelle's kids were yelling in the background. They were probably still setting up their play fort in the living room, but I didn't care enough to check. My eyes caught a flash of paper on the dining table. At first I thought it was just junk, some bills, random crap. But then the light hit it just right, and I saw the legal headers, the property terms, and my name scrawled across the bottom of one page. The signature was mine, or so it looked. But it wasn't. It wasn't at all. I stood there, frozen, staring at that page like the print was going to change. But it didn't. It was clear as day. They'd forged my signature. My parents had sold my place behind my back. They'd filed the forged sale papers, but the transaction hadn't been finalized. The title was still legally under my name. "Hey, buddy," Dad called, breaking the silence. "You good?" I didn't answer right away. I just kept staring. Then I heard his footsteps coming closer. He walked in, grinning like nothing was happening, like this wasn't the first time he'd done something like this. He slid the papers into a drawer, as if it was a completely normal thing to do. "Just organizing family stuff," he said. I smiled back, but my jaw was stone. "Yeah," I said, voice tight. "Family stuff." He went back to his microwave dinner, still smiling, still oblivious. Or maybe he wasn't. Maybe he knew exactly what he was doing and just didn't care. I left without saying another word. My fingers were shaking as I shut the door behind me. That night, I met Lisa. She was a quiet local realtor I'd helped with a leaky sink once, a woman who knew how to keep things low-key. She had no interest in small talk, which worked for me. We sat across from each other in a greasy diner booth, black coffee between us. I laid it out. Everything I had seen, everything they'd done. I didn't sugarcoat it, no point in lying. She didn't blink, just stared at me for a beat, then nodded. "Sell it," she said, calm as ever. "I'll buy it myself, no drama. Clean break." No drama, she meant it. And that was the cleanest offer I'd ever heard. No games, no theatrics. I wanted to ask her why she'd help, why she was so damn sure, but I didn't. I just let the silence sit. It felt like the first honest moment in weeks. Lisa sipped her coffee and waited. I nodded. "Deal," I said. January rolled in with sleet and dirty snow, the kind that piles up on sidewalks like crusted salt. The sky was gray and the city was quiet, heavy with the chill of a season that wouldn't let go. It was a Saturday and I knew what was coming. I'd seen the posts, I'd heard the murmurs. But this was something else. A moving truck pulled up to my building. I watched through the window as Michelle hopped out, bundled up in yoga pants and boots. The kids trailed behind her, dragging stuffed animals and blankets. They looked like they were moving into their new fairy tale house, the kind you see in commercials. Dad, of course, was in charge. He gave orders like he was commanding a damn battalion, his shoulders stiff, the way he always carried himself when he thought he was in control. He marched up to my door, key in hand, like everything was fine. At first, it was casual. He slid the key into the lock, then turned. The door didn't budge. He tried again, just a little harder. Nothing. His face started to twitch. I could see the tension in his jaw, the clench of his teeth. He wasn't going to admit it. Not in front of Michelle, not in front of the kids. But that's when Lisa stepped forward. She was wearing a red parka, her dark hair tucked under a beanie. One hand held a steaming cup of coffee, the other was clutching a set of keys, the kind that meant something. She walked up to Dad and smiled, calm as ice. "This place belongs to me now," she said, her voice cool, steady. "Alan sold it. Here's the paperwork." The world seemed to pause. Dad blinked, his fingers still fumbling with the lock. Michelle took a step back. One of the kids started crying, a toy falling from their hands. It was all wrong, all of it. Phones went up. Neighbors started filming. I could see the flashes, the little red recording lights lighting up from the hallway windows. Everyone had their cameras out, getting ready for the show. I stayed in my car, parked around the corner, far enough to stay out of view, but close enough to hear the chaos unfolding. I watched it all through the mirror, the drama, the confusion, the unraveling of a plan they thought was bulletproof. Michelle dropped a box. It clattered against the pavement. I swear I could hear the sharp intake of breath from my mother as she realized what was happening. "No," she whispered, almost like a prayer. Lisa didn't flinch. She just handed Dad the paperwork, her face completely unreadable. "It's done," she said. "You're going to need to move." There was a moment where everything felt suspended, like the world was holding its breath. My parents were frozen, staring at Lisa, the truth settling in their bones. Then the questions started. "What do you mean it's done?" Dad asked, his voice rising, but it was a little too late. "We're not—" Lisa raised a hand, cutting him off. "There's nothing to discuss. Alan made his decision." From my car, I could see the helplessness in my father's eyes, the realization that he wasn't in control anymore. My mother's face crumpled, and she stepped back from the door like it was burning her. I couldn't help but smile, just a little, watching them squirm. Michelle stood there, stunned, her hands gripping the box so tight that her knuckles went white. "You're really doing this?" she said, her voice trembling just a little. "Yeah," I muttered under my breath, still watching. I had to keep my distance, let them feel the sting. The crowd started to gather in the hall. People were starting to talk, to whisper. They weren't sure if this was a joke or some kind of stunt. I didn't care. None of it mattered. I let them have their moment. I let them think it was all going according to plan. But I knew. I knew how quickly it was going to fall apart. My phone buzzed. A message from Lisa. "It's all signed. We're good." I didn't respond. No need. I kept watching. The whole thing was collapsing, and they were still trying to hold it together. They thought they had control, but it was already slipping through their fingers. I couldn't wait for the next part. But for now, I just let the mess play out. That night, Michelle posted a video. It was one of those selfie shots, the kind that makes you want to cringe, but this one hit different. She was in her car, parked on the side of the road, the lighting all wrong. Her eyes were red, mascara streaked down her cheeks like she'd been crying for hours. "My brother kicked us out in the cold," she sobbed, looking into the camera like it was the last shot of a reality show. "After everything we've done for him." The words felt like daggers, but it was the way she said them, that self-righteous victim tone, that almost made me laugh. It spread fast. Within minutes, people I barely knew were tagging me, commenting about how cruel I was, how heartless. I could almost hear the clack of their keyboards as they typed all righteous fury. I stayed quiet. I didn't need to respond. Not yet. The next day, though, I uploaded my receipts. I didn't rant. Didn't fire back with some emotional, messy post. I just posted the facts. I started with the forged signature, a photo of the document, clear as day. The squiggly mess of ink that looked like my name, but wasn't. Then came the screenshots of emails from Dad, calling me a speed bump, talking about how they were gonna push him out when the time came. And there it was. The whole plan laid out in black and white, how they'd intended to dump me, take over the condo, and keep the whole thing quiet. I posted it all, simple, straightforward. It was quiet for a second, but not for long. The comments started rolling in. I didn't respond to any of them. I just let it sit. Old neighbors remembered my solo graduation, how I'd been left standing in the parking lot of that high school, waiting for a ride that never came. Co-workers who had never cared enough to ask why I never showed up to the happy hours or the office parties started chiming in. "I knew something wasn't right," one of them wrote. She scammed me in a fake business." Another one said, "Her dad was always like that." And then the comments started turning. People who had always known me as the quiet, invisible one started talking, started piecing it together. "Makes sense now," someone wrote. "Damn, I knew it. She always played the victim." Michelle's video, her mascara tears and all, started going viral. People were passing it around, sharing it, laughing at how over the top it was. Memes popped up within hours. I couldn't help it. I watched a few of them, the ones where she was crying and pleading for sympathy, but with the pity party music in the background. It was too perfect. She was the star of a show she didn't even know she'd lost. I kept the silence going, letting the storm swirl around me, letting them squirm in their own mess. The internet was turning on them, and all I had to do was watch. They thought they were in control of the narrative, but it was mine now. They still had no idea how deep the hole was they'd dug, but they'd find out soon enough. My parents tried to spin it. They called me selfish, claimed I'd misunderstood everything. "We were just exploring options," Dad said, like that was supposed to make sense. But nobody bought it, not anymore. At church, folks stopped sitting near them. The murmurs grew louder. People were starting to put two and two together, and it wasn't adding up to the picture of perfect, respectable, admired people they had always tried to be. Even the preacher started avoiding eye contact with Dad after the service. The barber refused my dad's appointment, said he was booked up. I heard about that from a guy at work. My parents were being erased, one little snub at a time. And it wasn't just the small-town gossips either. It was everyone. Michelle lost her job over the bad press. Apparently, the company she worked for didn't want the headache. Or maybe it was just easier to distance themselves than deal with the fallout. Her boss sent a message that morning, something about severing ties for the company's reputation. That was when the cracks started showing. She didn't take it well. Her husband bailed a month later, took the kids, half of the savings, and left her to face the wreckage. I knew it was coming. Everyone could see it, even if Michelle couldn't. Then, my parents had to sell their house. I don't think they thought it would come to that. I don't think they realized how quickly their reputation would crumble once the truth came out. They didn't have enough left to buy anything decent, not in that neighborhood. They ended up in a rental in a town nobody knew. A place where no one waved when they drove by. A place where they weren't the shining example anymore. Their pride, their perfect image, gone. All of it, just like that. And the best part? I didn't have to lift a finger. I didn't need to do anything but let the truth spill out. The internet did the rest. The neighbors did the rest. The company, the barber, the press, they all took care of it. The shame settled in. They could feel it, even if they wouldn't admit it. It was heavy, quiet, and suffocating. It was the kind of thing that lingers long after the story fades from the headlines. I didn't feel sorry for them, not one bit. I left Boston in the middle of April, didn't tell anyone. I packed up a pickup, loaded it with the bare essentials, and drove north until the noise finally ran out. I didn't want to hear the sound of their voices anymore, didn't want to see their posts or feel the weight of their lies. I found a condo in Maine, nothing fancy. The floors creaked when you walked across them, the walls were thin, but the view hit like peace. Waves smacking against the rocks every morning, the kind of sound you can sink into and never want to leave. The silence, real silence, the kind you can breathe in. No one called, no one apologized. I didn't expect them to. A few months later, I wrote one last message. I didn't need to explain myself anymore. I didn't need their validation. I didn't leave family. I left the poison you kept calling love. I hit send. Then I blocked every number,